everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fret Success Guitar Show. Today we have Daniel Champagene with us, who is stopping through Calgary on his tour. He's a massive worldwide tour, pretty much, to talk to us and talk about his guitar foundations and how he got started, and talk about his kind of behind-the-scenes music stuff. So, hi Dan, how's it going?
Very good, Dan. Yourself?
Good. Yes. Interesting, never interviewed someone with the same name as me, so that's funny. So, guitar, how did it start? When did you pick up the thing, and how did you get going with it?
My first memory of anything was watching my dad's band rehearse in our backyard in Melbourne. So he was playing guitar in that band, and I think I was 4 at the time, and I thought it looked like a lot of fun and that I'd have to try it one day, and so I started finding his guitar around the house and trying to strum it. And I think a few years later I got a few lessons and then got sent to a really great teacher, and kind of things went on from there over the years.
Right, and so was it acoustic you picked up originally, or like why acoustic? I mean, you play that predominantly, but...
Yeah, it was acoustic first of all. I was mostly playing that, and then when I found a teacher, he was mostly teaching classical. Through high school, I did go into an electric phase and played in a lot of bad
as
classical
everyone does,
bands. Yeah. But then when I started touring, because it was acoustic, it was singer-songwriter. So I was always just traveling with this, and I rarely have the opportunity to play electric guitar now. It feels like a very foreign instrument to me.
Really? Okay. So why does it feel foreign to you now? Is it because you haven't played it for so long, you just don't feel engaged with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing this almost like every day, and then playing shows with it mostly, 5 days a week. So I get very used to this guitar in particular, and acoustic guitars. So the electric guitar, just obviously I can't do any of the percussive stuff, and it's just you need a different touch, as you know, and I sort of haven't practiced that, and so now I can just appreciate other players rather than do it myself on that instrument.
So when you picked up the guitar, your dad obviously kind of inspired you in a way to get going with it because he was playing, but who were the people that kind of influenced you to, I guess through the years, because getting to where you are now, probably taking a few different influences, you can hear bits and pieces of other people in your playing, and it's a nice amalgamation of things. But who are the people that you sort of listened to as a kid? And
as everyone, it changed so much through the years.
Yep.
So firstly it was my dad, and he was playing some Bob Dylan songs, some Paul Kelly songs, who's an Australian writer, and some Rolling Stones songs, and so I'd listen to them. And then when I was sent to guitar lessons, I listened to some classical guitar players, and then in the electric phase it was kind of Henrik's and Stevie Ray Vaughan. But when I started writing songs and playing more of the acoustic stuff, I was really looking for people that I felt played really good acoustic guitars and wrote nice songs and sung as well. And the people that I really loved were Jeff Lang, who's an Australian guitar player, and Kelly Joe Phelps too, both of those guys. And then when I found like Michael Hedges and some people who did some of the percussive stuff, I sort of looked at them a lot in amazement and stole some tricks. And for me, most of that styles come from like trial and error, so just messing around with the instrument and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, you can see that when you play on stage. I kind of came down to have a look last night, and you're very intimate, and the instrument, you just know where to touch it in the right places, and that was sounding filthy, but like it's just, you know it very well, and the different sounds you can get out of it. It's almost like you've got 5 or 6 instruments that you're kind of playing, and you're using different fingers for different things. And how the hell did you even get to that point where you were, what was the rehearsal part and the training part that you got to learn the instrument that well?
Yeah, I mean, most of those kind of extra like percussive things come about when I'm writing a new song. So I kind of, hit the guitar in a certain place, and it's like, oh, that sounds cool, I want to try and fit that in a song. And so then when a piece comes along that has enough room in to do that, I try and put it all in. But I think a lot of that sort of creative intimacy has come from just doing it. So like I've been touring for 15 years now, and playing lots of shows with just this guitar, so I feel like I know it pretty well now.
And it's interesting because obviously your CDs and albums have sometimes got a full band arrangement, but watching it last night, it didn't feel like it was missing. It was nice that you could cover that on the guitar and the song still transcended into that, you know, that place that a full orchestra, or you know, you've got strings all over the place, drums and piano and stuff, and it's nice that you can still take it back to its bare bones in the guitar. And do you think consciously about that when you're taking songs from the studio right out into the world?
Yeah, no, to be honest, like I feel very comfortable on stage playing a show. In recording studios, like making albums, I still feel like I'm learning every time. So I still don't know. Like there's this thing of, at the moment it's one thing on stage and then a very different thing in the studio,
Right.
Which I'm kind of happy for them to be just different art forms, because when I have tried to just record guitar and voice in the studio, it's not the same as it is live. You're kind of missing something. So obviously the live show probably leans towards more of the guitar stuff, and the album stuff leans towards the song and the voice a bit more. At the moment, I'm pretty happy for them to be fairly separate things. I don't think I'll ever be touring with a band or anything. But I'm always curious about how to do it better.
In the studio, just for a sec, do you perform the songs, singing and guitar, and then you kind of layer stuff over? How does that work? Do you do the overdub thing? Like,
yeah, I usually do them separate.
okay, that's interesting, because that would seem really difficult. I don't know.
It is for the percussive stuff, like the stuff I do live, because tempos are changing and dynamics are all over the place. But usually playing the song, I'll do the guitar piece first, which I find really hard. I find recording guitars, it's like once you press play, everything's 10 times harder, and you're making mistakes all over the place that wouldn't stand out if you were doing them on stage, but now it's under the microscope. And then I'll sing afterwards, and that's mostly just for sound quality reasons. You know, you're going to lose a bit of quality if you do it all together. And then from there we add other instruments, or whatever feels right for the song.
So when you're writing these songs, how do you kind of start the process? Is it like you inferred more of a rhythmical idea, and you're tapping things and seeing what might work, but now you've kind of refined that a little bit. What does that look like? Is there a process that you go through?
They all start as like little snippets of something that I think is worth pursuing. So often it's messing around backstage trying to get the guitar in tune before the gig, and you stumble across something that's kind of cool on the guitar, and then you're humming some gibberish over the top of that, and you're like, oh, that feels like it could be good. So often, it started as both until I get something that like feels like it's worth turning into more. And because I'm touring a lot, I'm not someone that can just write in the spare hour between soundcheck and show. So I kind of wait till I've got a week off or so and sit down with all my phone notes of me trying to map something out in the dressing room. And sort of flesh them out.
I do find it hard sometimes to get back to those ideas and take them and progress them.
Yeah, sometimes it's like you totally know what was special about it, and sometimes you're like, I don't know what I was thinking was good then.
Is this the ramblings of a madman or a hit song? Yeah, I get what you're saying. So the guitar, you've got the guitar. I'm not familiar with the brand Cole Clark. Maybe you could talk a little bit around why this guitar.
So these are made in Australia, just outside of Melbourne.
Okay.
This guitar I specifically came into contact with because it's pretty revered for the pickup system, as far as like being able to do the percussion thing and coming out
without like booming around and stuff.
I mean, from what I've seen, and I've seen most guitars out there, people can spend a lot of money and get some really good mics and have a really good sound. But this guitar, with the pickup it comes with, you just plug it in and it sounds good.
Awesome.
Come as you are, as I want you to be, as a friend, as an old.
So I've been playing these guitars since I was 14 and sort of developed my style around them a little bit. I did have an issue because I do so much percussion. They were cracking a bit. And so the guys in the company like took it upon themselves to make a really strong one. And this one here is that. So I've had it since 2015. It's played over 1,000 gigs.
It's doing pretty well given the banging and beating that you give it.
Like it gets touched up every now and then. I've got to do something about there's a little crack on it. But I think the key to it is that there's two faces on it. So there's one underneath with the grain going in the opposite direction for strength. So I think it used to hairline crack and there'd be nothing to stop it. It'd get to the bridge and that would sink and you couldn't keep it in tune. But now there's something going against it, so it hasn't cracked yet. And it's amazing. I love it.
What's it made from? What's the, do you know the woods?
It's Tasmanian blackwood.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And then rosewood and I think Queensland maple on the neck.
It's just so, listened to it last night, it was so lively,
Yeah.
but had a nice mid-range top end that was clean and not too harsh. But the low end was there, present. I don't know, it was a nice balanced sound.
Thanks.
Given the fact you were kind of thumping it. And
Yeah. I mean, for a guitar, like, you'd be surprised how many times I just plug it in
Mhm.
and the sound person's like, that's good. You know, I put it through a little amp, one of the AER amps, and
Mhm.
so I've got my own little twist on it, but often it is just, they just turn it up and they're like, yeah, it sounds good. Which is nice because I don't use any pedals or anything, so I like to just keep things as simple as I can.
Mhm. So talking simple as you can, when you play and sing at the same time, it kind of perplexed me and made me think I would throw my guitar away. But like when you're doing both at the same time, it's quite mesmerizing to watch. Like, what has the journey been like? Did you get great at guitar and then start singing? Were you always kind of a singer? Like, how have you, because you're a great singer as well, it's hard to figure out what kind of came first. Did it, or did you just kind of do it together?
It was kind of separate in that, like, I went to a primary school that was into people singing, so we
Okay.
sang every day.
Yep.
I also did some choir stuff,
Mhm.
and so that was always separate, and I enjoyed singing. And then when I started writing songs, I sort of put them together, and the guitar playing got more and more complex. But I guess when I started touring, it was always more about the guitar, and the singing goes over the top of that. When people say it's difficult, it's kind of one of those things where it's like riding a bike. Like, at first, you can't do it. It's not as difficult because everyone can do it, but you just haven't worked out the mechanics. But then once you have worked it out,
Yeah.
it's just very, you can't not do it, sort of thing.
It looks like on stage like you almost set a machine going. You're like,
Yeah.
your hands are kind of doing very similar movements in songs. You've got the timing almost with the delay of your hand kind of, you might not even know what you're doing, but it's, you kind of watch it and you're kind of watching it like a little machine going around. It's quite cool to watch.
And it's totally one of those things where, like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
Like, at first I knew what I was doing when I wrote the piece and
Yeah.
started practicing it. But then it goes out. It's not in the mind anymore. It's like you're just doing it. So if I ever stuff, and every now and then I'll stuff up, and it's like a piece that you know too well, and you just don't know how to go back into it. It's an interesting thing.
It's cool. One thing I really thought was cool was the way you transitioned between tunings to, like, someone that wasn't a guitar player would almost sound like you were just doing a nice musical transition into something. It was quite cool. I'd never, because normally it's like, oh, stop, wait,
Right.
kind of thing. But it was like awesome, you transitioning, and then you almost made it part of the intro to the track you were playing. It was quite cool.
Thanks. Well, I'm glad you said that because I like the sound of guitar tuning.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't. I know some people have said, like, you should mute it so people don't hear
Yeah.
it. But I kind of see, like, tuning between songs. It's kind of like driving between cities, and you see the landscape change, and sometimes the accent change, and the elevation, etc. So if I were to just play a song and then mute it and then tune it and then play the next song, it's kind of just dropping in. Whereas I like to see it as a bit of a flow and lead up into what's coming next.
That's exactly what happened. It's
Cool.
it was really cool. I'd never seen anyone do that before, and it was like I could see you thinking, oh, that's slightly out, and then you would kind of play something to make it sound like you were intentionally doing it. It was great.
It's a funny thing, man. Like, as you know, tuning is like, some nights you get it in like 10 seconds and you're good, and then sometimes you're just screwing around for 3 minutes and you're like, I don't know what's going on.
Like that B's just slightly out, and you're like, whoa, I've got to do that again. So,
and I always have this thought, it's like, you and me are guitar players, so we listen to it all the time, so you would know if it was a bit out, but I always wonder if it's worth me putting
yeah, I could see you thinking that last night as well.
Like, if I just let this go, but then I know, and it's
halfway through you'd be like, man, I wish I'd tuned that.
there's nothing worse than like thinking you're good and you get, and there's a point where it's like, it's a bit out, but it's not out enough to just stop the song and do it.
Yeah. Especially when you're like, harmonizing in the way you do. Like, I can't quite figure out how you're doing that sometimes, where you're doing the harp kind of notes.
All right, yeah.
And stuff like that. And that was mesmerizing. That bit with the capo that you did was moving around, and I was just like, fuck, this guy's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, like, you do a lot of, different types of songs, but a lot of them seem to be quite story-based and around experiences you've had in your life, and especially Canada seems to come up a fair bit. So why in particular do you sing around, Canada, I guess?
Well, Canada was the first country that I toured outside Australia, and I came back every year since, other than the pandemic years. And so I guess when you go from when you come from, everything's normal. So to me, my accent's normal. Your accent's weird.
Yep. Vice versa.
But so what I'm sure you found when you first left England.
Yep.
Your sense of, everything's just more exciting.
Yep.
And so you take all these characters and the places. And so I think for me, when I started traveling more, I was just inspired a bit more by, the scenes and the people and the stories. And songwriting, I find it's very easy to get the material when I'm just traveling around the world playing, because you're always meeting, last night there's always a lot of characters at that place. So there's probably 1,000 songs in that bar alone. So Canada, it's just always been special for me because it was the first place I came, and it was also the first place that sort of started doing pretty good. Started selling out some shows and people telling their friends across the country, and so it's just special. I've got friends across the country and I feel like I know it fairly well now.
In Nova Scotia, with every note that he wrote about, riding shotgun under the prairie skies. She said goodbye, Manitoba, and all the friends had told her it's alright to lose yourself.
Yeah, last night you were talking about people that put you up for a period and stuff, and we'll get to that in a little bit later on. But is there a particular area of inspiration? I mean, I hear things like Manitoba and open skies and stuff like that. Is it because there's a mix, and you seem to have an appreciation for nature and beauty, and I find the way you play guitar and the kind of melodies and stuff kind of take you there, and the lyrics kind of emphasize that. When you're writing melodies, are you thinking in terms of a guitar, a piano, a voice? How does it kind of fit vocally, I guess?
I'm kind of thinking mostly as a person playing the guitar, singing over the top of it. So there's very little singing stuff that I will write without the music playing under it. So I'm not, I know some friends who sit down at a piano and they really hash out melodies. But for me, it's more, I guess, a natural feeling that comes out of the music that you're trying to play.
So you've been on a world tour. This is probably your biggest tour for a while, probably, with the most people that's kind of recognising you and attending shows. You alluded to in Canada that, selling shows out and stuff now in Calgary, which is awesome. What's that been like, that transition from, years ago, playing and scraping probably to get gigs and please let me play, and now it's probably a different scene. Has the mindset changed at all, and what's been the struggle there?
It's been very gradual because it's been over 15 years. But I think a great example is last night in Calgary, because the first time I played at the Ironwood, there was 11 people in the crowd, and at that point, most club owners would be like, thanks, but not next time, sort of thing. But Pat is a big believer in music, and he kind of just kept on booking me, and so last night was the 9th time I played there. I got 2 full houses. So that's the main plan that I've been going for. So it's been very gradual. I would say that probably the first 5 to 10 years were a lot of hard work, but it wasn't. It would be hard work if I were to do it now. I don't know if I'd go back and do it. But at the time, I was just so stoked to be out there playing anything and getting free beer sometimes and meeting people and traveling, that it didn't feel like work. So I think it's pretty well designed for that, in that when you're young, you can do the really tough stuff. And then maybe as you get, I'm 33 now, so I feel like now I need a bit more comfort, and I'm happy with how it's going. Yeah.
So your life's in a different place. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit.
Yeah. No, you're less willing to put up with stuff.
Yeah, a few less couches, less.
But also, you've seen the success and the transition. You don't have to do that again. So you're kind of in that different place. But I guess when you alluded to sleeping on couches and stuff, you alluded that you'd had times in people's basements and people putting you up. Do you have any stories around that? how that even happened or came about?
That particular one?
Yeah.
That was just a couple that I met in Germany at an airport, and I was kind of planning to do some more American tour. I just got the visa, and they just let me stay. And I was doing a lot in the Midwest. They were in Minneapolis,
Okay.
and so I'd stay with them, in their basement, and had all my stuff and had my mail sent there and everything. Yeah, a lot of I still stay at a lot of places. We're staying with a friend in Calgary now, but yeah, just a lot less random asking people from stage if I could crash on their
Kind of
floor.
sleep at your house.
Sleeping sleeping on the stages. That was the thing. Less sleeping in the car. All of those.
Well, that's always nice.
Yeah. Particularly when it's like -20 or something.
Yeah, it can get a bit challenging, especially in Canada.
Yeah.
In the winter times. No, I think the Ironwood is a fantastic venue. I think it's nice, intimate, but people are kind of eating it. It reminds me of a jazz bar almost, but it seems they get all sorts of acts through there, and your music kind of fit perfectly on that stage. And I like the way that you kind of, the whole stage felt like you were using it. You were jumping around, you were stomping, like it was very physical as well.
Starts like a supernova. We wouldn't even matter how close I hold you. We'd make it to the stars, and it all turns out we both burned out 1,000 years.
Do you feel that is an important part of the live piece for you?
Yeah, I do. I feel like embodying the art is important, and the reason why is that I think that everyone says music's universal, but I think just like genuine passion is more universal, and everyone's passionate about something. So if they're watching a dancer that's really passionate, or an actor, they might not necessarily be into that, but they're passionate about something, so they can relate to what they're doing. So I think that if I think basically I like to show people that I'm here, this is what I'm doing, I really love doing it. Hope you like it too, but I'm going to enjoy myself. and we were talking about the early days, like that was really important early on, because it was like, I don't care if those 3 guys at the back of the bar are like heckling me, I'm just going to enjoy what I'm doing for the next 3 hours sort of thing. And I really love it. Sometimes it's to pump myself up too. If I'm a bit sleepy or something, to get into a gig, I think getting physical is a good way to do that.
So how do you warm up for a gig? Do you practice much? I noticed when I came backstage to say hi, you were going through the vocal kind of rehearsal and practice.
It's different, yeah. I'm someone that I deal with nerves if I haven't played for a bit. So even if I have a week off now, the first show back's a bit harder. So there's more of a routine. But when I'm playing day after day, I'm kind of just in the zone. And most of backstage is some breathing stuff, some jumping around, getting the heart rate up before I go on stage is common, and mostly just trying to make sure the strings are stretched, because I put them on each day before the gig.
Sure, okay, yeah.
So that's a big one, just making sure they're not going to slip on me or anything like that.
I'm intrigued to what kind of string gauges and stuff do you use?
I just use 12 to 50, 54, I think.
Okay.
EJ16s.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's nice. They
Standard.
sound bright, nicely balanced, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're always new, so
That helps.
They can be a bit bright, yeah.
But yeah, no, it didn't seem like they were too bright, so it's like the guitar's slightly mellowing it out potentially. But yeah, it was another aspect of your performance was really cool to see, was your interaction with the crowd and like, the storytelling elements. Was that something you've always been good at, or is it something you've refined over time?
I'd say the latter. Yeah, it just comes from doing a lot of shows, and some between the songs are the biggest variables I find night to night, because generally the songs, you're playing the same things, you're singing the same things, so you should be getting it right. Every now and then you'll have a big stuff up, but not often.
Yeah.
But between the songs, it's funny, like some nights you step up to the mic and you can say anything and it's really funny. And then some nights you just step up and for whatever reason you just can't string 2 words together. I don't know, it's got nothing to do with like how well I've slept or how good I feel, or like the lighting, or I don't know what it is, but it's just some nights you're on, some nights you're not. I'd hate to be a comedian because with music, like with what I do, people expect the music to be good, but the whatever else is kind of a bit of an added bonus. So it doesn't have to be great. But I always feel for comedians that have to be great at that, because that's all they've got.
Yeah, it's an expectation.
Yeah.
Like it's almost an added bonus. But it's nice to see someone that's able to navigate that almost like dead time and stuff
Yeah.
between. But you were also filling it not just conversation. It was like you were just like slamming into a guitar piece that looked really impressive and cool, but actually complemented the transition of the song. So it was
Thanks.
nice to see that you'd kind of thought about it. And I noticed you asked people if you had an intermission, and you're asking people if they had any requests or anything.
Mhm.
Does that happen a lot? And you kind of have to think, oh God, how does this song go? Like,
Yeah, it happens a lot. Well, you know, I was talking to Forrest, who's tour managing me, and I always say at the end of every set, like, if there's a song that you know I play, let me know. And I think I need to word it differently, because there's always someone that just comes up and be like, oh, do you know how to play like Hotel California or Stereo? Like, I need to say something different, because that always happens.
people do that.
People do that, yeah. Every night, 2 people last night did that.
Really?
Oh
my God.
But which is fine. But
Yeah.
I that's me saying it wrong, I guess. But yeah, people, and I love to hear what different people like. You know, because I don't really know. Like, I think when I write a bunch of songs and record them, I have ideas of what I think are going to be the strong ones or the ones people like. But sometimes it's very different to that. That's really cool. There are a lot of songs though that I just don't really play live, and so when someone asks me, I genuinely would be like, oh, I'd have to practice that and play it next time.
Yeah, that's what my worst nightmare would be, a song that you did on like 3 albums ago or something, and you kind of half remember it. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I want to really let this fan know that I appreciate that they've listened and they recognise it, but I can't do that one tonight because everyone's going to think, what the hell's this guy doing?
Yeah. And it's hard because there are, to be honest, like the set doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
So each of those songs, I feel like I know that they're going to work. So it's always a bit of a gamble just throwing something in that you're not really sure of, because you haven't played it that much.
So you've got a new album out. Maybe talk around the concepts and thoughts behind what inspired this one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the inspiration was mostly, so I'd done the album before this, just before the COVID thing. So I'd done that in the States, and as it all shut down, I was kind of getting ready to release it. I ended up releasing it. And then I was in Australia for about 2 years. And we were pretty lucky in that, like, we had 6 months of total shutdown. And then there was just about a year of just, you know, getting into different places and playing shows at smaller capacities and dodging borders, playing by the rules, but they'd always change. And so I did a lot of traveling in Australia, particularly in smaller towns that I hadn't been before, and a big trip in New Zealand. So just kind of falling back in love with touring around Australia, and some old characters came back into my life and met some new ones. And then at the end of the New Zealand tour, they had some COVID stuff and they shut the borders, so I was stuck there. And I had 3 weeks just in a pretty sweet stuck spot of just a beach house that a friend had let me stay in.
Sounds good.
And I had 3 weeks of writing songs, like working hard. Like, I think I had 2 of the songs ready. I wrote hard for 3 weeks, and then I flew back to Melbourne and I had to do 2 weeks in a hotel quarantine. So that was another 2 weeks of intense thing. And I think I called Kaya, who was the producer, from the hotel and said, like, let's do it. And so went from the hotel into his studio in Sydney.
Right.
And started working on the album. So I think it's definitely come together the quickest for me.
It's like the pandemic actually helped you in a way.
Yeah, I think so.
Focus.
I still don't know if the quickness is a good or a bad thing.
Yeah,
But
sure.
but I guess we'll see how it
Not
goes.
so gentle on the shoreline, the waves crashing like meteors. I met an older man back caravan. Asked if he had the time. The doctor said 6 months. For now it's 4:25. He said I once lived in the city, working morning till the night fell. I paid the bank and I kept my front yard clean. But I packed that in and hit the road to watch Australia shimmer through the windscreen.
So in terms of like what you were writing about, how was what was the thought around that? Was it just kind of this instance, that instance, this, you know, when you're more lyrically, I guess, what are you describing and what's inspiring the album? Is there a concept or just kind of more of the same?
Yeah, I guess the concept, like, it's kind of transient and a bit of like, there's a bit of longing in that, like, I was shut off from a lot of people I really like overseas, and so there's a bit of thinking about them as things change, you know, as people are getting married and having kids and moving
For sure.
cities and all that. So there's a few about that. I felt like it was the first time I'd stopped in 12, 13 years, and there's a bit of reflection, and there was a few sharp moments. Like when I sort of think back on things, sometimes there's really sharp memories that shoot at me.
Yeah.
So there's one song on the album called Driving Out of Austin that was like that. And that was just a very specific thing that kept jumping up, and I thought I'd write about it. There's another one called Saskatoon that was like that, about a character. So it was good for that, like reflecting on what's been, and my songs are always like a little bit of something that actually happened, and a bit of exaggerating that or twisting it to fit into a song. So it's all a bit murky as to what actually ends up there.
It's cool because everyone can interpret it their own way a little bit more.
Exactly.
Because if you just describe the event, it might, not be as good. So it's powerful that you do that, and even we've been talking for a while because you've been on tour for a while, but definitely getting into your music more recently, it's just you feel connected to it music pretty quickly. It's quite crazy how even after a listen, you just like.
Oh, thank you.
Feel really relatable, and you can pull different things from it, and then when you the lyrics take a break, the guitar kind of just blows you away, and but it's also like a melodic kind of lyrical guitar playing. It's not like you're just shredding away on it or just bashing it for no reason. It sounds very thought out, but in kind of a romantic way. It's kind of nice to listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. It's one of the best things I've ever done. It's really cool.
Thanks.
When you're kind of deciding instruments, is it always this one that you play?
Live it is.
Yeah, no, I mean more than a studio setting.
Not really.
Yeah.
I like this guitar because of all the extra wood. It's very quiet.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful tone, but it's very quiet. And as you know, there's a lot of amazing guitars in the world. And whenever you go into a studio, they've got like, oh no, man, this is the good one. So I'm always happy to try them.
Yeah.
Obviously, anything that's percussive, I don't want to like break anyone else's guitar, and this guitar sounds really good to do that. So I'll always use this for that. But I'm happy to try whatever. Yeah. I personally don't. I've got a lot of these guitars, just from ones that I've had over the years that I've toured with. But I personally am not like. I have a few others. I've got like a Martin D35, which is the main one that I've used on albums.
Okay.
Other than that, they're just sort of probably not great guitars, but just special for different reasons.
No, it's interesting that you say that because like you seem drawn to this one a lot. It's kind of nice because when you go in a studio, I find sometimes the engineer's trying to shove you this, shove you that, shove you this.
Yeah.
This guy sounded great on this one. And I have had that a few times where I ended up just using a Telecaster for the whole recording because it just cut through nicely and sounded great. But Les big expensive like Les Paul custom thing, and it just didn't sound as good for the track. And it's with this being kind of an extension of you in a little bit of a way, it makes it more important for it to generally be this instrument, probably because you write the songs on this. It sounds this way. You write the melody because it's on this guitar. So.
Yeah, I feel like this sound this feels like my sound.
Yeah.
And you're always kind of looking for that.
So is there a difference in the audiences like across the world that you've noticed? They like particular types of songs, or like do you feel the craft changes as you move through, or are you pretty consistent?
I would say probably not country to country. Like audiences are different reacting. Let's say like the American audiences are they're a bit louder and they'll let you know how they're doing, compared to the British ones that sometimes
you think no one's there.
Yeah, sometimes well you're just kind of wondering how it's going. So like are they enjoying this? Like they're not walking out, so it must be going okay.
That's generally it.
Yeah, Germany's the same. But as far as the content, I would say that the general thing is that people who are newer to the music are there and interested about the guitar stuff, because I think it's quite different for people, particularly if they're not in. A lot of people there last night are not. They're not listening to guitar music. They don't really know a lot of the plays that you and I know that use a lot of the same techniques. So they're like, "Wow, I've never seen that," and it's really new for them and exciting. And then I think, hopefully, when they get into the music, they start to learn the songs a bit more. And so I'd say the older fans that have been coming for years are more into some of the deep cuts, or maybe more into the songwriting because they've seen the guitar playing a lot.
Yeah. They're kind of over that initial wow factor, if you like. and they're kind of invested in it. But have you had any fans come up to you and tell you some crazy stuff around your music, or anything that's kind of inspired them or situations?
Yeah, a lot of weird stories, and I've been in weird situations that are not appropriate to talk about here. But yeah, like kids being named after me, or people getting married to a song, one of my songs as they walk down the aisle, or first dance, or things like that. Yeah,
and how does that make you feel?
It feels great. Yeah, it feels really good, and it's something that I never expected. You know, when I started playing guitar, it was mostly to like get free beer and meet girls and maybe travel. There were probably 3 big ones. So things like that, or like another big one's people learning your pieces. Like that's something that specifically blows my mind, because I was a teenager that was just obsessed with a few guitar players and always learning their pieces. So it's really, really cool whenever I hear that.
That was quite unique, actually. I went on your website a while ago, and you're selling tabs for your music, and not many people do that. I think it's quite cool that you're actually taking the time to do that. Just because of the way you play guitar, it can be a little bit, daunting, I guess, for a lot of players.
Yeah.
What was that like, trying to tab all that stuff?
Well, it's a good question. I didn't do it.
Oh, okay.
Which is a good,
Interesting. That's
some friends of mine did it.
Okay.
And so, to be honest, I don't know how good the tabs. I think they're good because he's a very good guitar player,
Okay,
and he does it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get them, and hopefully, like, even if they're not learning the whole thing, they learn something. And I know a lot of people are learning some of the more simple things just off YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, it's something I really love to see, and I'm always happy to. I want to teach more, but when you're touring, there's just not time.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm always happy to hear like a guitar teacher that's teaching one of my songs, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Talking tips, tricks here.
Mm-hmm.
When you were learning and where you are now, is there anything, I always ask everyone on the show, tips, tricks that they have that would help people along? It doesn't have to be like an instructional tab or anything, but just conceptually things that were game changers, or like hurdles you went through that were like moments of realization.
Yeah, I think just find what you fall in love with and go deep into that, because then it doesn't feel like work.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're just battling against something that you're not really enjoying, it's going to be a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the career path. But I know for me, I found certain things, when I found the percussive stuff or the tapping things, I just really found it a lot of fun and exciting and inspiring. So I just got deep into it and spent 10 hours doing it, and it didn't feel like, I spent a minute. So I think that's a big thing. Saying enjoy it sounds like a cliche, but it's kind of the truth too. Just find what you love doing and do that.
Yeah, it's finding an area that you can really dive into and be passionate about. It's interesting that you said at the start of the interview around kind of, doing the whole band thing in high school, and you clearly went, I want to do the acoustic thing. And what was it that actually drew you to that?
I think what it was it felt more like me.
Okay.
And I've been interested in finding that more and more. So for example, like I used to play a lot of blues, and I used to play some jazz, and obviously I played classical for many years. And I kind of realized after a while that no matter how good I got at those styles, I don't think it would ever sound like me. So there's something about playing these songs in these tunings with my voice and this guitar that just feels very much like me. And I think it's very honest.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I want to put out into the world. Like playing in bands was fun, but we were just doing like, I don't even know I forget. We were just kind of playing like rock covers, and it was cool, but it didn't sound like any artistic output. It just sounded like a bunch of kids having fun.
And did you get drawn to writing them more quite quickly? You were wanting to write your own thing and shoot yourself off and say, I've got something to tell here. Yeah,
I liked the freedom of writing. Like at school, when there was like quite a strict curriculum, and you had to do this, you needed to learn that. I found the idea of just shutting yourself away and you creating the rules for that song, and I found that very liberating and inspiring.
And that's why I still chase the stars.
Do you run songs by anyone? Like when you play them, do you get input, thoughts? Or do you tend to just, this is me, let's go with it?
Not really. I'm kind of like that a little bit. Like I'm not a big one for constructive criticism, because I'm not trying to get perfect at anything.
Yeah.
Like if I was in another job where if you're in like a company that's trying to get streamlined and perfect, then you want all the constructive criticism. But I'm not trying to get better at anything. I'm just trying to get more me. So sometimes I'll do all the demos and send them to a song, but it's a bit like send them to a friend or something.
Yeah.
But it's more just to like check I'm not going crazy, like there is something here. I'm not really looking for them to be like, oh, have to think about that bridge and maybe, twist. It's more of a personal pursuit for myself.
And so finding a producer that works that way, was that a journey for you? Have you been through a few people that were more, constructive criticism that wasn't really vibing?
Yeah, I mean, not so much constructive criticism that wasn't vibing. I've had producers that have been like, no, we're going to do this.
Okay.
And I've been happy to do that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if I really don't like it, it just won't go out.
Yeah.
But when they've done that, it has been a bit of growth for myself, because as I mentioned earlier, like the studio, I still don't really know what I'm doing, but for some reason I have this need to like hang on to the control even though I don't know what I'm doing with it, which is a funny dynamic. So yeah, all different types of producers. Like Kai, that's done my last few, he's a bit more of a guy that's like, I know you don't want to do this, but let's try it and then see how it is. But other producers have been like, no, we're not doing that, we're going to do this. And sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't. It's always interesting to see.
It's good though, because at the end of the day, you're still going to stay true to yourself and what works for you makes sense. So it's nice that you found that relationship now with someone that you can kind of trust to handle the stuff that you don't care so much about, the sonic and audio side of it. It's cool. So do you lock yourself away, do an album stint for a couple of weeks, or is it like piece by piece? Like how do you normally do it?
Yeah, it's been very much piece by piece. I'd love to, you hear about those bands that just book a studio for 6 days and they're like, we're making the album. For me, it's very much like, I think these are the 10 songs, but then there's another 3 floating around and I'm not sure about 2 of them. And so I'll go in and record them and then take them away for a few weeks, and I'll usually be on the road in those few weeks. Kind of listen to them like, that's good, that's too slow, we need to record it again. That song I thought was really great, but it's actually really bad. So it's a lot of like trial and error and just whittling away at the thing. Usually over like maybe a 6-month period, something like that.
So how's it been? Are you like linked to a label or any kind of financial backing, or is it all kind of your own thing?
It's all my own, yeah. So I've done 6 albums now, and they've all just been
That's impressive. Yeah.
me paying for it, like my touring, paying for it, which is great. Yeah, it's a good way to be. And now, like I've already made the money back on this album, and it hasn't actually been officially released yet. So it's independent music's great. Like if you keep busy and if you build it in the right way, I believe in it.
Do you think things have changed? We've had all sorts of revolutions in the music industry in the past 10, 15 years. Now it seems very open for anyone to have a go at it, and you're succeeding at it. But there's obviously the temptation for there to be overload. But are the things you've learned on that side of things to help you gain traction, gain an audience, be contactable, and balance all that stuff as an individual? Do you build a kind of a team around you? Do you have how's that work?
Yeah, I mean, so the big things for me are booking, because I tour so much. So there's I still do some of the booking in Canada and New Zealand, but then there's an Australian agent that will book all the tours. There's an American manager she books all the tours and she does all the tax stuff and money stuff. And so a bit of a team, but as long as they're not doing anything you can't do yourself. I know a lot of people just getting people involved for the sake of it. But yeah, I think try to do as much as you can yourself is a good way to be. If that's the way you want to be, it works for me.
No, the way I found you was actually through a Facebook advertisement, and it's quite cool to see that, because you don't see that very often, even though Facebook adverts are drowning your feeds or whatever.
Yeah.
But for you to be playing live and a local show and stuff, it really stood out. Do you feel that helped?
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically that would be like the biggest thing for me, like those advertising the shows. And I think what it is like, often if someone sees an ad pop up, it's for like Pepsi or some international thing that they don't really care about, but there's just a lot of money being thrown at it. But I think if someone's sitting in like Lethbridge and there's like this guy's playing here and this is a song, you can check it out and see if you like it or not. And often they'll be like, wow, I've never heard of this guy, but it looks pretty cool. And no one ever comes to Lethbridge, so let's get some tickets and see how it goes. That's been a really big thing for my career, particularly over like the last 5 years.
Always on my mind. I don't want to let you down. I just want to let you know that I'm not always gonna be around. You'll always be home to me. And I don't want to hold out now. Come too far just to go back. I'm not always gonna be around. You'll always be home to me.
So how do you go about doing that? Is it you have people run the ads for you? Do you target certain demographics of artists? Like, can you go a little bit into what that's been like?
Well, I do it all. Like
Okay.
I was doing it this morning
Cool.
for the next sort of few months. So yeah, you can target. I mean, I've kind of been doing it for 10 years, so I could go into deep detail.
Well,
So I'm happy to do that.
just highlight, just kind of
Yeah.
whatever you think people could learn from, I guess.
So basically, the way that I do it is, and I help other artists do it as well. So I've learned a fair bit. I'll set up an event for a show, so like the Calgary show, and then I'll just run an ad, usually with a video of me playing live, saying, this is the show coming to Calgary. Get a lot of people interested in the event, so then you can kind of retarget those people that have said they might be interested. Usually it's like 11 people going, 700 people interested, because that's the way of the internet these days. But then on top of that, there'll be percentages of people who've watched that live video. So if you say like, there might be 800 people in the event, but there might be 100,000 people in Calgary that have watched 25% of that video.
Yep.
And these days, if someone's watched 25% of a 3-minute video, they're kind of interested.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah. So you can retarget those people too. And that's kind of basically how I do it.
Do you find that it was important to have a good... Because I think what I saw you playing was like you were in a field or something, like playing in the trees, but having a good recording and a video to go with it, do you think that helps?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the most important. Yeah, good song, good video. And it obviously doesn't have to be like a flashy film clip. In fact, that probably works less. But I think in my case, it's literally like, this is what the show's going to be like. Me playing guitar and singing. If you want to come, you should come. It works. It works really well for me.
Cool. So what's kind of next for you? You've got more tour to do, obviously. Like, what's the plans? Are you working on? You've got this album to get out.
Yeah.
What, have you got more thoughts as to what you want to achieve in the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always just continue the snowball rolling, because it's incrementally going well and stepping up. So, I mean, geographically, like I finished this tour October 25 in Newfoundland, and then I go to New Zealand. I tour there till Christmas, and then the first half of next year is going to be in Australia, and so it's going to be quite a less intense tour, because it's about 50 shows over half a year. So there's going to be a lot of weeks off, and hopefully working on music and just doing non-music related things. And then next year I'll be back in the States, and I feel like in the US there's still a lot of work for me to do building it. As far as the album goes, we just see how it goes. Like I'm not someone these days that knows what to do as far as like the world of releasing music online.
Yeah, for sure, it's big.
But I'm just happy to put it out and do whatever I can. Spotify thing, there's a million conversations. I'm not one that really knows much about it, so I'm always willing to like do what I can to help push my songs out there, but I'm not gonna like totally just put all my eggs in that basket, because it doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, because as you're touring, you probably make more income from selling things at shows.
Probably 1,000 times more.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, the Spotify thing is great for convenience from a listener perspective.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer for a listener. Like, it's easy, but it has been definitely a challenge just from a musician's perspective. There's all sorts of people that are being quite open and quite opinionated about pulling out of certain things, and it's just a bit messy. But
yeah, I think it's one of those things, like the potential is there. Like I know artists that pay rent, that's how they make their living. And as far as musicians go, like a monthly check from something like that is as close to passive income as we'll get. That's not like going out on the road and playing shows. So it's tempting. I think it's like if you can build it, then good for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not someone that performs particularly well on that platform, so I'm happy to just keep touring for now.
Cool, great. Well, thanks Daniel so much for coming on and chatting.
Thanks, Dan.
I know you've got a busy schedule, but it was great to see you play last night and to meet you. So
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me.
that's great, absolutely, fantastic. So go check out Daniel's album. The links will be in the description below or around or wherever it may be, wherever this video is. If you can comment, that'd be great, and any subscribers are very welcome here. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.